Hey, welcome back to wook+live on Weekend Wook, joined by Great Went. Yo, what's up, Kev?
Oh, saw a little goose last weekend.
Me too. How was your show?
It was fantastic. I like I said, I love goose when I am seeing them. When I'm home, I probably won't throw them one, but always the people. There's a lot of good people there. So
You're
many
like
great people.
85% sold on Goose. Is that what I'm
Eh,
hearing? Like
Something like that.
87%.
87. No, it's just I can't make it through a stream. I don't know. I'll usually listen to the first set and then on set break end up doing something else and never going back for the second set. Whereas with Fish, I'm watching the halftime
Yeah.
screen. Stay tuned for 35 minutes.
Right, staring at it. Well, before we talk too much about those shows, because I want to bring our guest on to talk this because it's a topic that our guest happens to know quite a bit
Speaking of
about.
goose,
Speaking of, yeah, I went to the Friday, you went to the Saturday. Um, yeah, you know what? Fuck it, let's just bring him on. I was gonna do housekeeping, but we'll do it at the end. Hey, what's up, Greg?
Good to be back, guys.
Yeah, welcome. You've been on a couple of times, well, several times actually.
Yeah, this is like 3 or 4 for
Y-
me.
Yeah, and you are, for those who don't know, you are the only individual to have a Wookiee award named after you. So several individuals have won Wookiee awards, but there's actually the Greg Knight Wookiee for making shit happen. So it's quite the honor.
It's actually a lot of pressure. I have to maintain this productivity. I'm just running myself into the ground here.
Yeah. So you got to see Goose in Philly too, right?
I did. Yeah, I was after 5 nights at the Cap, was like, you know what, I'm good for a while. I am not gonna see them for a few months. And then I heard that Echo of a Rose from Friday and realized they still got it. And so I hopped on an Amtrak down on Saturday, and definitely was worth the trek.
Yeah, Friday ended up being a really great show. It was weird for me. I was there Friday, and I guess Kevin, you were on Saturday. A weird thing on Friday though is the mix was really off for the first couple of songs, and it was throwing me for a loop. And like I was much higher on Goose than I was in that first like 10 minutes. I was having like an existential crisis. I was like, "What's happened? I've been tricking myself this whole time?" And then
Yeah.
eventually they fixed it, and I was like, "Oh, thank God!" And like I got back into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's an interesting thing. I think overall the mixes have been like better in general. And like this is not at all my kind of world in this organization. In fact, anything I say about sound, I encourage them not to listen to. But I think it's been an interesting thing watching both the team grow and the rooms change size remarkably, right? To go from these arenas with Trey and Mohegan, kind of solo, but then back to 3,500 person opera rooms. We're not exactly the most seasoned crew, I think, with all of that. And I'm using we loosely because I can't touch any knobs. But it's I think there is probably like an element of adjustment once you get 3,000 bodies in the room and you're bouncing off Wook's chests.
I've read that Bob Weir once said that even from night to night in a room, they would go back and they'd have to do sound check again because the humidity in the room was different, so it made it sound different.
Definitely. I was humid on Saturday, so I could only imagine the impact it had really on sound.
I mean, I guess that is kind of a byproduct of how quickly they seem to have grown and the increase in the venue size. I mean, it seems like what, 2 years ago it was not even like a year ago. It was like smaller, not like clubs, but you know what I
Yeah,
mean, like bar type club type venues. And now, I mean, the Med is a big, and the Cap, like those are decent sized venues.
they played 9:30 last two Mardi Gras ago, and since then I think they've been on the trajectory where like they hit that chrysalis at MPP for not one but 2 nights during the summer, and
Yeah, interesting
and the
with
thing,
the chrysalis too. I was like talking to Rick right after it was booked, and he was saying like, "Oh, I should text Trey and tell him thanks for letting us use the pool." It's a funny thing though. I wish I had made it down to the to that show because it just looks like such an incredible venue.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm curious what you have going on with this relics thing. I saw these ads and I was like, who's that sexy motherfucker? And then I looked closer. I was like, oh, that's Greg. You look sharp, by the way. You look smart as hell. I think it's the blazer with the t-shirt look. I think
No, it just is 3 years ago. Like, that
Oh.
sexy motherfucker existed in the past.
Wait, the event is new, but the
Oh
picture.
no, yeah, I'm talking about the photo. Yeah, the photo.
Okay. Well,
the
yeah, it's a
event-
sharp photo. Yeah, well,
thanks.
your hair
Yeah.
was different, and but it's a sharp
Shout
photo.
out
We're
to
not
that.
here to talk about the photo, though. I'm really curious about this event and this panel you're moderating, and I think maybe I have some questions for you.
Totally. Yeah. So I'm really stoked about it. I was asked by the team at Relics Magazine to moderate a panel at their annual live music conference. I think this is the first one they're hosting since the pandemic, but it's at Brooklyn Bowl, Nashville this year. A whole bunch of really exciting speakers and that sort of thing. A few different panels. Peter Frampton will be there. An evening performance by Andy Frasco and a fundraising spelling bee. But I'm moderating a panel about artist branding per se, which is good because I will be asking the questions.
Right.
You're asking questions. By the way, this is the picture I'm talking about.
That's the photo.
Yeah, it's great.
But yeah, so it's a 2-day thing. It's April 17th and 18th at Brooklyn Bowl, Nashville. Whole bunch of programming around it. I went a few years ago, kind of I guess early on in my career, and you can really pick up a lot. Just it's not entirely jam scene focused, but there's a whole lot of just really, really engaging stuff if you are a masochist and want to work in the music industry.
Well, let me ask you hypothetically, if you were a young artist right now, or not even young, if you had a band and you were trying to break into the scene these days, right? Because I feel like, right, say you had a band and you were a drummer, for example, and all right. And no, but seriously though, I feel like it's a whole different landscape even than it was a couple of years ago, let alone traditionally, the 60s through 90s style. Right now, what is your advice for establishing your brand as a band and getting into the scene? Because you've come up with, for the people who don't know, you came up and helped Goose tremendously with a lot of their marketing and were involved there. You work with a lot of other bands now, right? La Special and all sorts of bands. So
Pigeons.
We're not just randomly asking Greg. Like Greg
right,
is
right. There's more than one band out there, although Twitter would make you think otherwise.
Right, Twiddle, Pigeons. Like you've worked with a lot of great bands. So
definitely.
What is your advice for a young band that's just getting started out?
One, I think it really depends on genre. I think we're really lucky to be firmly rooted in a community that is so tied to the live show. That's not the case everywhere. There's bedroom artists popping up that, getting millions and millions of plays on Spotify or streams or however they're doing it, and they've never played a live show. And so I do think what I can speak to that's specific to the music we know and love is one, just getting out there and pushing yourself live, taking those chances. You'd rather have people hating on you on Twitter than not at all. And also really just a continuous stream of regular content that is as high quality as possible. Allow people into your world, allow people to know more than just your music, but you as people, you as artists. That to me is the best way to establish kind of a grassroots following. People are going to feel more invested if they feel like they're part of something early on and they know you. I think outside of this specific jam space, which I hope this model will live, in perpetuity and kind of be a flourishing microcosm adjacent to what's happening in popular music. I think it's becoming increasingly okay to be as much of yourself as possible, and really putting that front and center. Of course, try to make good music, but the whole idea of how we access artists and why we're tied to them, and I think for the next generation is really evolving as social media becomes more intrusive.
Yeah. I wonder if social media is going to stay in that position, though, because it seems to be deteriorating before our faces, recently, too. So it's almost like it has this really huge impact, but at the same time seems to have a short shelf life. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not a fortune teller, but at least
Well,
maybe it's the boomer and but like even like Twitter, Facebook, Insta has been gone for a while now, and Twitter's falling apart, and
Totally. Yeah. I mean, like once this TikTok ban hits, everyone's going to have to go back to practicing their instruments.
right.
well, I was going to say, with social media and the internet, everything becomes instantly available. Years ago, AC/DC put out their new album. I either had to wait in line and buy it that day if I wanted to hear it, or maybe hear one song on 98 Rock. And if I went and bought that album, I was invested in AC/DC because that was all I had. I might hear what's on the radio, but I couldn't just click on, hey, well, let me try Led Zeppelin today and Deep Purple tomorrow, you know?
Definitely.
So it's I guess it's easier to get your message across, but maybe it's also the pool's more diluted. It's harder to break through.
Definitely. I mean, and like artists aside, like we all have specific things that set us apart. We all have things we do that resonate with others. And I'm not gonna lie, like none of this is easy, which is why I realized early on it's much easier to work behind the scenes. But like, I think authenticity really does go a long way. And frankly, like that's not a thing that you can just find, and that I think, it takes a little bit of sticking with it.
Oh,
That's
sorry,
all.
no, it's all right. My shit just glitched. Or I just glitched. Something just glitched. It was either my technology or my brain, but something just glitched there. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's one of these ongoing conversations that I think people are gonna have had for a very long time and will continue to have. And there's those artists that figure out in the moment and their team, right? It's more than just the artists that figure out for whatever the situation that they're currently in, how to capitalize on it the best, that kind of breakthrough. And yes, I do think music is the first and foremost, right? You have to have great music, but it's definitely not just music because there's a lot of phenomenal artists and musicians that don't break through, and there's a lot of okay musicians that do much better.
Right.
But yeah, it's you think about how like Fish, I think with the dawn of the internet and the taking advantage of like tapers and everything, like they utilized that in the Dead before them, and like a lot of these bands, what was
Message board.
available.
Fish existed, and like God Street Wine, all those bands, they all had their own message board. If you wanted to know what was going on, you went there. People be calling in set list to their friends, and their friends be typing the set list. That's how you got live updates.
Definitely, but I think that's the other thing is like, you stick with it long enough, you start to build that grassroots fan base. And if you continue to feed that base that really supports you through the difficult early days and create that community, like they're always going to rock with you. Always, always, always. I mean, how many things has Fish done that we've let be excusable just because we're early adopters?
Mhm.
It's
Pretty much every year there's at least a couple, these days.
Definitely. I mean, even like everyone gets their annual show of life sometime, and it's like, I think at the end of the day, one of the coolest things about this is like, so even since the Dead, like in this specific scene, it's like people have found a way to get the word out so that whatever was happening, the set list was like the most newsworthy thing. President going to get arrested? Who cares? Big bust out second set, and like that kind of thing. I personally like still, if I check Fish from the Road, like, and it's a song I'm still chasing, my heart flutters still, right? Like, and I've done this a lot, and it could totally be self-induced palpitations, but I think the fact that you can maintain this much investment after so many shows and so much time is indicative of the fact that artists who go out of their way to kind of feed that swelling base seem to happen with them for a long time.
Do you ever talk to Rick or Peter? I don't know who writes the set list, but do you ever talk to those guys about the set list writing and their process of it?
Not anymore. And like back in the day, it was Coach and the band. I don't know really actually what the process looks like. And I also, at this point, since it's not like I can kind of go up the street and see them 5 times in a couple months the way it was back in 2015, like there's a bit of an element of surprise that I do enjoy. So I actually try to avoid seeing what's on the docket. Like if I'm gonna travel and go to Red Rocks and see their inaugural show there, the last thing I want to do is know what they're opening second set with. You know, it takes away a little.
Yeah, I was just curious if the idea of what you're talking about, like the bust outs, if that goes in, because they will bust out some crazy covers sometimes, or you know what I mean? I feel like that the set list is as much part of the marketing these days as anything else with jam bands.
Totally.
You know, it has to be part of the consideration, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, and even with any band, it's like, imagine you have that song you've been chasing for years, and then like you see a peek at the set list, and you're like, God, after all this time, I know it's coming. You know, it's like that sort of thing, I think. But I do, you know, as far as the set list construction goes, I know Coach is still involved as someone who's been to so many of their shows and really knows the ebb and the flow of the crowd and how they react to Goose's music, you know. But I wonder kind of for all bands how that process shifts over time.
Yeah. That's why one of my favorite interviews, aside from talking to you, Greg, is our Matt Bush interview, because we got in pretty deep. And are we making any announcements? No.
No.
Okay.
Maybe. Well, no, yeah, May 3rd.
Okay, I was gonna say we're gonna have him back on May 3rd,
Yeah.
so make sure you guys come back for that. But he talked a lot about the calculus of set list making and the process, and it's super thought out because he does it for Dead and Co.
and Wolf Brothers.
And Wolf Brothers, and he did it with Further, right? Him and Phil's guy split, or Phil's wife, I guess, split half and half.
Right.
It's fascinating. I setlist analysis and thought process is probably one of the more interesting non-musical parts of this scene. Like, I get obsessed with set list.
I'm such a fanboy with Matt. I'll be like, that was a great set list last night, man. I can't believe you put whatever song in there.
No, you know what you should do is just text them during a show and be like, what the fuck? Why'd you play this here?
Whose fault is this? I mean, it's to me, and I think, because I don't like the competition aspect of things, but it's like following sports or whatever tickles your fancy, right? Like, there's, as you become more and more invested in this stuff, the whole idea of how these set lists shift over time too is like, it's pretty crazy. And I do, like, I'm not a huge stats guy. Like, I can't tell you really show gaps or stuff like that, but it really is interesting to look at for anything. Like, I won't know them off the top of my head, but I may sneak a look at my phone, and then if nobody says it, I'll be the first one to say it.
Well, that's been an ongoing joke with our channel. It's like, if you want the stats, you go to Osiris. If you want, like, everything else we can give you, but like, I don't think any of us are those guys that just pulled. Oh, that was, you know, January
when I was
5th,
a kid,
97 or whatever.
When I was a kid and all I had were Dead tapes, I could tell you, I still to this day can tell you so much about when the Dead played some just by hearing it. But it goes back to, that's all I had were these 10 tapes. So I listened to them over and over. And
well, that is a good point too. Like, I think maybe in the age of instant gratification, it's easy to not remember those things. But I had a tape player in my first car. I probably have told this story every time I've been on. But like, I got my first Dead and Fish tapes from this guy at a health food store in my town. Like, I had a Fish shirt on. I was probably a junior in high school. I was going to buy some tea tree oil toothpicks, and this guy, like, cooking tempeh in the back, just was like, "Oh, you like Fish? Take these tapes," and gave me just this shopping bag full of tapes. And so, to that point, I think there are a lot of shows I will probably always remember just because it was one of 6 tapes out of my car.
And we get anything you want now. I can listen to 100 Goose shows over 100 days if I want, and I'll, never listen to them again, so it doesn't get burned into your head.
Well, you know what's weird about that though? I still listen to the same dozen shows probably. You know what I mean? Even with all those options, I mean, I still listen to like 3 bands, and like when I listen to Fish, it's usually like the same, dozen shows or so.
Yeah, and a lot of mine are older shows. Like, regardless of how many 3.0 shows I've been to, like, I rarely listen to non-90s Fish, or post 2017.
Throwing on the
post 2017, because like I was gonna say, I got a 15. Like, I'll listen to Magnaball and I'll listen to Baker sometimes. I'll throw in there. But yeah, the majority is probably like 95, 97, 99.
You throw in the
me.
banger tweezer instead of the Tahoe tweezer every day of the week.
Depends on how much time you have, right?
Right. You got all
Yo,
afternoon. It's good.
so what was it? Tweezer's birthday or anniversary? What yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, that's what I was told by a
Do you have a
producer who
favorite?
decided not to show up.
You have a favorite tweezer? That's a spot question. I know.
I do. I mean, I have like, but like, I don't want to be the I don't want to be that guy.
Disparage anyone.
Like, you know which one I'm thinking about.
I probably, out of the more recent tweezers, like the MSG, what was that, 19? I think I like it a little better than the Tahoe tweezer. Out of the old tweezers, I think Bomb Factory is probably the one I would go with. I don't know. Actually, let's put this in the chat too. I'm curious. I want to have a list in the chat of people throw in what your favorite tweezers are. Maybe we'll have a tweezer special or something.
There you go. So and today is
94 or 95. Like,
right.
I think they're remarkably different tweezers those years, and I think both years have their perks. So, you know, if anyone wants to dig in there.
Today is the anniversary 29th of Hoist coming out. Where are you on Hoist, Greg?
I like Hoist a lot. It is in my top 8 Fish studio albums.
That's PR expert right there.
Yeah. It's definitely Hoist is a movement.
I think it holds up, and I think it's a great snapshot of Fish at that moment in time.
Sure, and you know, I also wonder. I don't know. I mean, I'm just stoked that they're still cranking out albums. I also, a lot of the early, like when I first started playing guitar, I think I probably learned Hoist songs the most. Like, you know, like Sample in a Jar. This is probably 2002, right? So, and Disease is on Hoist, right? Too.
Yeah, Disease. You have Sample, Julius,
yeah. So
Axla.
Wolfman's, yeah. So a lot of my 4-chord songs early on.
I love the version of Wolfman's, like with the vocals and everything. Actually, Julius too. I like the production of the album. I like what they did with everything. Yeah.
Right, Tower Power. Alison Krauss one, If I Could, is the most beautiful thing Fish ever did. Maybe.
Yeah, dude. I agree. That is an absolutely beautiful song. I never heard Alison Krauss. I never listened to her outside of that song. She's like one of my favorite singers, but only because of If I Could.
Yeah. I don't think I've listened to any Alison Krauss outside of
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? She did that soundtrack.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
That's a hokey ass movie.
Yeah.
I like
Soggy Bottom Boys.
Yeah, I liked it too, but you watch it, you're like, this is some corny, hokey ass shit. But I mean, it's fun. It's like you feel good, but
yeah,
that's great. This place.
I want Demand back though. If we're talking Hoist, I want a Demand. I don't know. Do they even play that? Have they played that live? Not
Didn't they
forever.
Play it on
if they
Fall
did.
21. Didn't they bust it out Fall 21?
I wish we had a fucking producer. God damn it, Llama. I'll look it up.
The Demand is though the part about Demand that was the jam for Split Open and Melt.
Oh yeah.
That's like the big part of it is that it's, you know, the jam out of
right?
it is from a Split Open and Melt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's the beginning that is well, for me, the drums in the beginning, I can't sing it. You know what it is.
The last one was in 2016, and the one before that was in 2009, and they're the only two in 2.01.
What? Fuck. Bill Graham, of course.
Bill Graham was in 2016.
And everybody's, the Fish hates the West Coast. You got to demand. You shut the fuck up. You got to.
I don't know why I thought they did it. But the other thing, what was is it a prayer in the middle? It has something I'm not even going to try to pronounce, but it had that little like weird vocal thing in the middle of it.
No, yeah, it has some weird like audio shit, and then it goes into the Melt Jam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the car crashing. That's a weird story, man. It's a little creepy that the guy died listening to that and they used it on the album.
What? Is that what happened?
Yeah, some guy died and listening to Split Open and Meld apparently, and that's why it has the car crashing and all. They did it as a tribute to this guy.
That doesn't
Wow.
sound like a real story. That sounds like a fucked up story you hear on lot when you're spun out, and then you tell other wooks,
Right.
right? And then all of a
Right.
sudden it becomes like fact,
Still exists.
Like I'm
Years
saying,
later.
the power of a grassroots fan base, you know? You just
right?
put
And
that out
now,
there, let the word spread.
right? And then fast forward, and then you have this platform on international television with literally dozens of people watching. We got tens of people.
Hey, you know,
Spread that gossip, Kev. Where'd you
double
hear that
digits.
shit? Did you hear that online?
Look, here, listen. It says, according to an interview with Fishman, on the afternoon prior to Demand's live debut, the ending is a prayer like the voice is rising to heaven, the spirit rising out of the body. Fishman also mentioned was the favorite song, Split was the favorite song of a fan who died in a car wreck, and that her friends wrote Fish a letter to that effect, but that the track was set before the letter arrived.
Okay.
Oh, so it's a strange coincidence.
All right, what did Sting call that? Synchronicity?
A serendipitous.
Something with an
Yeah.
F. We are
Let's
legends.
keep, let's
that's
keep
right.
the old story going.
Yes.
Yeah.
The old story was much better.
No, they did it to mock the guy. They're
Yeah.
like, what a dumb way to die.
Oh no!
Unbelievable.
God, that's so harsh.
I hope he didn't actually get split like in the
Oh,
accident.
oh. Tim's just gonna buy into it.
Bring it back.
Somebody
I-
call his
Yeah, we're
publicist.
pushing
Somebody
this
call
rumor.
the publicist.
This-
Please.
I need a publicist. We need PR help. Oh, man.
It's fun. So what you have? Well, let me ask you, what's up with you got pigeons you work with? Who are throw out some of the bands you work with? 'Cause I want
Yeah.
to pick your brain.
So yeah, definitely pigeons, they're full speed ahead. They're in flight.
How are
per
the
se.
kids? Didn't they both have
Um,
babies?
Yeah. 3 of them have babies now, which
Oh, who's that
is
singer's name? The
Greg.
Greg.
Yeah,
And
it is.
then
Yeah.
Jeremy on guitar has new baby, and Ben on bass does also, which it's just kind of wild. The first time I saw them live was probably 12 years ago. And so to go from meeting them back then to being able to do some PR work for them over the past few years to now seeing them really doing well on the
Hitting their
road
stride.
and having kids and just thriving. They have their festival Dome Fest in May at Legend Valley, which is I think the 10th Dome Fest.
Right.
Like seeing the elbow grease that they've put into this whole thing and how hard they work to keep this going is the work ethic is second to none, and I'm so happy for them because getting to know them over a decade ago, I think if I had asked them then if they'd all be having kids and just pushing forward doing this whole thing in this position, I don't know that they would have said yes, and that's super cool, and even their festival to be doing it for the 10th year and have started on the quad where they went to college and then scraped together money to book
In an actual dome. It was in
Yeah.
a dome the first time.
and they booked Papadosio the second year and let them headline, really grew the thing. I know everyone has their opinions and we know what opinions are like, but what I can say is there are not many bands with longevity like they've had, and I'm very, very proud of them. Also, I'm working with a couple events, Northlands Music and Arts Festival, which is in New Hampshire, in Swansea. It's year 2 independent festival. String Cheese, Mike Gordon, Arebelo, whole big, excellent lineup, nestled in the rolling hills of Southern New Hampshire. Going to be a really great event in June, and support independent music festivals. We need them. A lot of stuff. There's a lot. I'll just try to work product placement in.
Yeah. Do
have
it.
Have you heard Gator's band that he is doing with Natalie Brooke, Infinity Tribe?
I have.
I like that. I like what he's got going on there.
Yeah, Gator's an excellent player, and I think I really like to see all of the artists that we know and love step out of their comfort zone. Whether it's Infinity Tribe or Touch Pants, I think that everyone has a different outlet.
Touch Pants, yes. If you don't know Touch Pants, look up what their hit song is, because I'm not going to say it on live television.
That's right. But yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I think this is a pretty big year for like the scene. Like we're really back in full swing. There's maybe too many festivals happening this summer because I feel like there's 10 things every weekend. And it seems like people are really comfortable. Although I did enjoy pod shows.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nice for people that don't like to be too crowded, and I get a little claustrophobic at shows, I'm not gonna lie. Like, at the Met, those seats were tight. If
Yeah,
you were down in the seats, like, they're small seats and, like, you really were, like, kind of but that said, I am super excited that everything's in full swing and, it's I was worried because a lot of the bands I really liked were there was a string of like with Chuck getting sick, and then like the Twiddle announcement came out right after
Mhm.
that, and there was like this period, I don't know, I suppose towards the end of last year, or whatever, where things were like looking kind of bleak, and I feel like that is kind of turned around a lot.
Definitely.
Um, yeah, I'm bummed about Twiddle. I know people that they become like kind of like a stupid joke to some people, but I
Mhm.
really
So,
liked them.
right.
Well,
Oh, yeah,
It's
love them.
strange. It's strange.
I think there's always the kind of pervasive headier than thou that we
yeah.
encounter because, of course, our scene is just full of so many people with really good ears. But like, there's that like, there's that headier than thou thing that people can say what they want to say, and in the comments on any given platform, but. I won't give the exact same soliloquy about how Twiddle's been touring for 18 years, but that's a long time.
And they're
Uh,
only taking a break. They
right,
said they're touring a whole year before they take a break, so you have a chance to see them. If you
right,
don't see them, it's your own fault.
definitely. I mean, 18 years, like I don't, I was probably doing something really stupid 18 years ago at this moment. I can guarantee that. So to be able to keep that ship moving, I think for so long, I think it's a worthwhile break for them, and there's some excellent musicians in the band who can make an impact in a lot of different
Well,
places.
isn't Mahali doing a solo thing? Was that how you
Yeah,
pronounce it?
yeah, he
Yeah,
has
he's doing a solo thing too.
It's
he's
going to
got
be
a
called
solo thing.
Mahali and Company.
Yeah, Twit and Co. So yeah, he's got his solo thing rolling. I mean, Gubb is one of the best bassists in the game. I think.
Yeah,
He
I
can
do
land
too.
anywhere, and I think one of the things too, when talking about um almost the feelings of like impermanence, right? Like I'm going to see like a lot of Mo shows this year just because I want to make sure I can see Mo. I do wonder where and I don't want to, it to be bleak, but I do think that there are several generations of musician right now who will ultimately end up collaborating with each other as the years continue. And so all of us, three of us, as well as the people in the chat, we'll all be seeing shows in the same rooms because our favorite musicians will be on stage.
Yeah, here, here. I hope the collaboration, like the collaborative effort or bug that like we've seen with like Goose and Trey and Billy sitting in with a bunch of people, Billy Strings and like all these different things. I hope that continues through, and I think it's great for like the whole bullshit joke about the torches or whatever. But like that is kind of a nice thing that like the elder statesmen that have like figured it out and paved the way, like to bring up younger musicians and to bring us all together. I like that stuff. I hope I mean, I don't want it to be the only thing. Like, I don't want it to all be novelty. Like, I still want to go just see Fish be Fish and see Goose be Goose and Twiddle be Twiddle.
See,
But
I
like,
want
I
to see
really
the.
like those mixed projects.
I don't know.
You don't like them,
Like,
Kev? Give us
I
your
like
shitty take.
I love the collaboration things like this lamp thing. Have you heard about? It's
You
Ray
like
and
Clamp?
Ross with
Scott Metzger.
Scott Metzger, right? I was going to say Tommy Hamilton, and I was like, don't let that come out of your mouth. I'm just so excited for that. That's such a neat thing,
Yeah.
as opposed to going to see Fish, and I can probably see Lamp for 2 or 3 times for what I'm going to pay to see Fish one night.
Probably 4 or 5. Yeah.
Right.
No, Lamp is just an interesting cross-pollination of like artists that we'd probably go see anyway, right? I think it's cool. And I think what we'll find is that there's no torch. It's actually just a series of mini, flashlight-sized torches. Everyone gets one. All of us.
Right.
It's worked for you.
Yeah. We've got to get Ari Fink to pass us a torch or something as well.
I think one of the last times we spoke with you on air, you were in the studio with Ben,
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
are you still recording stuff? Are you still pursuing your own musical endeavors, or are you
I have
more so focused on other bands at this point?
I have so much music recorded. It is crazy. It's like insane. I have so many songs. So yeah, I still probably like once a month or so will get in to the studio. Generally, myself, like my good friend Rob runs a room up the road. It's a great space, and we'll try to get a different amalgamation of musicians together. Sometimes it works, often it doesn't. But like I have a lot of stuff. I have no idea what I'll do with it. I have to find an external PR team to do this. But I don't know. For me, it's been more of like just I think we're just writing about music day in and day out, and kind of doing the PR grind. It's good to be able to remind myself why I actually like music, and just be able to create some stuff. Because believe me, I generally run out of adjectives by like Wednesday. And
I
What do
think,
you-
and I don't know, I feel like musicians that work with musicians in non-musical ways, it's like, the secret sauce. Like, I feel like it's a benefit, right? Like, or not, it's not like different, not just like specific to music, but I feel like when you understand the art, it just helps in a lot, you know what I mean? Like with the ability to connect with the crowd and the band and to do your job there. Um, I don't know.
yeah, I mean, in that, like, in a certain way, doing something like writing a press release and pitching an album, like, it's very far removed from the actual creative process. And so, actually, when Goose was recording Dripfield, like, I realized that I had never actually been in the room with them when they were recording at all. And but most people on the team, or even just kind of in the band's greater periphery, have not, because it is a very intimate process. It's very different. And so when they were recording Dripfield, they were, rented this place and were working, out of the studio for several weeks. And they were in a really good groove, and text went out like, hey, we're just going to keep it to the band, because the creative energy is really good. And so of course I just forced myself in there somehow, and I don't
You're like,
know.
fuck your groove.
Yeah, I don't care. I think they had reached like a good kind of stopping point, and we're just doing some final dubbing pieces on it. And I just I went up for a day, but to see that whole process, like that is a completely different world, and it's way different than seeing any band that you know and love on stage. And so I just sat there and obviously didn't say anything because I had nothing to contribute in that sense, but then had to take everything I watched them do and bring it to the studio myself.
Were they in like a legit studio?
Yeah, they were up in
it was a made up one.
they were
No, but
there.
I mean, like, there's some. I mean, I guess by Dripfield it would be, but like these days, so much can be just done with a good engineer. Like, like,
But that's a studio.
well, I mean, okay, how do you want me to phrase it then, Kev? Was it like a name brand studio with the glass and the big old time mixing board and tape, or was it a
Yeah.
laptop and an interface and a guy that they knew
All
from college?
right, all right.
Like, what the fuck do you want me to? Greg knew what I meant. Why you got to be such an asshole about it?
It was a real studio. It was a real thing, and they were. This the first album they worked exclusively with a producer. So there's a place in Woodstock, New York, called the ISOCON, ISOKON, and it was produced by a guy named D. James Goodwin. He sat in with the band on Hot Tea at Radio City Night One. But he produced the whole album. He's worked with Bobby. He's worked with a bunch of folks. He's excellent. And so he had this really dope place kind of nestled on a hillside in Woodstock, that, he's since moved, but it was a really cool spot.
Yeah.
Which is different than the not so real studio that they recorded Moon Cabin in. It was just a desolate cabin near the Canadian border.
Now, what's their approach from what you saw? Was it all isolated and doing individual tracks, or were they trying to capture a live sound?
What
when they were
I
playing?
saw, and I was only there when they were tracking. I will not say anything more, actually. But from what I saw, they were just dubbing stuff over. For the most part, they were doing individual stuff that day, but the capacity was there to do it live. But I think if you listen to Dripfield, a lot of it, there's a lot of intentionality there.
But is it difficult to like having to focus on an actual physical record as opposed to a band that's only doing Bandcamp because you're trying to push the record sales, obviously?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, and this is one thing that's different about also the jam world, right? Like we are very, very accustomed to live albums, and most bands are not necessarily hellbent on making a really good studio album, right? We are so tied to the live experience. And so for them, I know that's always been a focus. They really like to be a studio band. And, but I think the band benefits from being they are really good songwriters. Mm-hmm. And so I do think that these things deserve to be captured on wax beyond, I think the potential that they all have live.
They approach it though, I feel like, as an artifact. We're going in the studio to lay this song down in time and concrete, where I feel like a lot of jam bands go in and say, oh, this is kind of how the song goes, let's record it. But they've never set it in concrete.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a whole different thing. And then you play it differently on the road, just to mess
like Born has been reimagined, I guess.
Yeah. And so just seeing, I think, that different type of creative energy and the way that the band, and not just them, but I think a lot of bands who take things in studio, it's a completely different way of communicating with one another. You can ask the person what the glance that they might normally give you on stage actually means because they're sitting in the same room. It's just a completely different, and I think probably a good exercise for any band. It's like you got to be able to give each other critical feedback and that kind of stuff. So that's why I just didn't say anything.
I find it interesting with musicians too in jam bands because you're right. You have to be able to give critical feedback. You have to have that emotional connection, but I forget what the word is, but like not overly, but like highly emotional people like that really emote a lot, like artists tend to be those types of people. And right. So it's like almost like at least in my experience, it's like the people that are the most emotional are also the ones that have to have the thickest skin. So it's like finding that perfect balance of like being so in touch with your emotions, but also being able to like have where
you get cut off like Trey's people did. They're like, you can't read any more reviews of yourself. We're not going to deal with it.
You're like Trey, you're just like, cut it all off. We're not talking about the show for 24 hours.
And see what it did? Trey's like, everybody loves everything I do. So he's like, let's do pinballs in outer space. People are going to love it.
On a soul planet. That's what happens when you
sometimes
don't read
you
reviews.
need sometimes you need some creative criticism to what you're doing, I think.
Definitely. But it's like, where do you draw the line? And I have no idea, especially because like all of us, the three of us have spent hours broadcasting into the void, dissecting what our favorite musicians do. Right. Like if someone started podcasting about the vault of music I have saved on my computer that I've made, I would be horrified. In fact, I would probably just leave the game forever and, move to Appalachia and become the postman. Right. And so like, I do think like, it's interesting to think about, right? Like, I don't know if I would read the comments. I'm reading the comments now, but we do.
I put them on the screen. If somebody did a podcast, which never would, because obviously it's not the same. Like I'm not pretending like a fucking dumbass YouTube channel is the same as what these artists are doing. But just for this thought exercise, if somebody did a podcast or a YouTube show about the art or content or whatever we create, within a matter of minutes, I would be fucking done. I'd be like, nope, I'm out of here. Fuck this.
For sure.
And so it is crazy that we're like so hypercritical and so intense, like analyzing all this shit, and they have to ignore it.
I feel like the first time somebody said something mean to me, I was like, I've made it. I was like, somebody took the time to hate on me to type into their computer to tell me something,
Yeah, no shit, Kev. That's why you try to have a bad take every show. You're like, give me the hate.
I have honest takes. This is truly what I think, and I've thought about it. It's not like I'm making it up. I've thought about a lot of this stuff, and when you're like, that's crazy, I got receipts. I can back myself up.
But I do think, though, podcasting is different than, like, performing music.
Oh, how is your podcast? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, speaking of that, we probably have said a few spicy things that the band didn't like also, but it's been good. We have been on a brief hiatus for no other reason than we had to let 90 other Goose podcasts sprout out of the ground. So big shout out to Goose Chicks podcast.
Leslie.
Cyrus, crushing it. Brian Storm and Always Almost There. It's almost like nobody had ever started a podcast with a Goose lyric, but shout out to them as well. High level analysis and stats there. So we've did a lot last year that was kind of outside of the purview of just digging into what the band was doing. I think for Bruce and I, one, it was like, okay, for how long can we actually go talking about everything our friends are doing weekly or after each show, and are there actually other shows that are probably more equipped to do so, so that we just don't end up telling stories from 2012 every week. So there's that, and also like we did things like live broadcast from Peach last year, which was super sweet, and interviewed a whole bunch of folks. So we've definitely actually been shifting gears a little bit to talk a little bit more to artists about throughout the whole scene. We weren't actually kidding when we say it's not a Goose podcast. And so I think like we're currently developing season 3, and we'll probably hit this summer. I think once Goose is halfway through spring tour and all those post-show recaps are running out of steam, we'll strike.
Yeah.
Speaking of post-show recaps, real quickly, make sure after Fish every night, 15 minutes after the show, we're bringing back the After Fish after show.
And 15 minutes after encore for every Den & Co show. We're gonna be busy this summer.
That's way in the future, though. Remember, we only look 2 weeks ahead at these days.
I've trained you too well. God damn, Kev. You just schooled me with my own lesson, Kev.
So what is the name of the pod, and where can people find it?
Oh, okay. Great Beyond Podcast. It's on the Osiris Network, well, on all streaming platforms. At Great Beyond Pod on Instagram. You can't miss it. There's not another one. I have a question for you guys. So
yes, excellent. Let's do that.
Since we've all met, I think we met in 2020 maybe, but
you were on the Moon Cabin episode.
I was on the Moon Cabin.
And we've met in person too. We've met at MSG and AC and Philly. Right. We've a couple times.
Yeah, but like the first time, I'm just thinking back. I'm thinking about like how many times Fish has played the Garden, just as like a kind of neutral zone since we've met, and it's a lot. But like I think if we lump the Baker's Dozen in with everything, we've really been able to see in the past 7 years a whole lot of Fish at the Garden. I'm very thankful because it's super close. Yeah. But like, what are our hopes and dreams for this summer after they've really delivered so much? And, frankly, how do we top things like Wales?
Yeah,
I know
it's a little weird too, because it's 7 shows, in the middle of summer. I think that they're going to. I think if we take everything off the board before they start, there'll be no repeats. I think that's a given.
Yeah.
And I think they're just going to give us 7 solid shows. I think they're going to say, this is 40 years in. This is what we are as a band who wants to play at MSG in the air conditioning in the summer.
Right, not travel. I mean, Baker's, everybody talks about the themes and the cool covers and the bust outs and stuff. But for me, the takeaway from the Baker's was the value of the residency and the comfort of doing the same routine every day, and the freedom it gave the band and how good they were able to play from not having to be on the road and not having to have the different rooms and the different vibes and the energy. We're talking about the humidity. I mean, like, they were locked in, and especially with MSG and the power and the energy Trey especially gets through the stage and from the room. So I don't expect, honestly, at this point, we're going to get a gag or a gimmick with it. I don't think there's going to be anything too fancy, but I'm hoping that they'll be able to really lock in. Holy shit. You still in Hawaii, motherfucker?
Live from Hawaii. It's
What's
somebody's on their honeymoon, Greg.
I forgot you were on your honeymoon, and before the show started, I was like, "Where the fuck's T?" And then I was like, "Oh yeah, he's on his honeymoon."
On my honeymoon, I just wanted to call and say, hey, check out, we got a little hot tub on the deck here.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
Ocean.
Hey,
Congrats,
congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate
How's
it.
it going?
Thanks, guys. It's going good, man. We're coming home tomorrow night. We're on a Hawaiian red-eye back. So
How's
Hawaii
Alex?
More
looks like it did you good.
it's been nice. It's been very, very relaxing. It's been very fun. It's nice. The wife is doing good. Anything
Recovered?
hi. Good to see you guys.
Yeah,
We
man.
need to get a goose concert over here or something now. We really want a goose concert over here. Mexico's too overrated.
Yeah. Just a concert. You know,
Got to bring it back to Hawaii. Remember that when everybody was talking about fish playing Hawaii? That was a weird ass rumor that went around.
yeah.
It made no
What?
sense to me. But
It's
you know.
almost like the demand rumor.
Right.
It's like,
Cool.
anyway, I just want to say, hey guys, I will be back for next week's show. But
All
I'll
right.
let you guys get back
We
to
miss
it.
you, T. Congratulations
guys.
again. We can't wait to have you back.
Thank
See,
you. I
good
got
to see you, brother.
we'll talk. Good to see you too, Greg. Take care, guys. I'll see you later.
Congrats.
All right,
Bye.
later. Oh, that's
That's
cool.
fantastic.
Congrats to
Man
T.
got married.
Fucking Alex is the best, so I'm happy for them.
Alex is. I'm happy for anybody who wants to get married.
Yeah. Amen.
This buddy of mine, I saw him out at we were at the bar. It was late, and he said, "I'm getting married," and I go, "Good luck." And I was like, "Wait, no, that's not what I should."
No, but you know, I think we were talking about this on Saturday. Like, there's some important wisdom to be gained. Like you shared plenty with me on Saturday. No, it's good. We were chomping hard first set. It was like, what are the Muppets? Statler and Waldorf, you know?
Yeah,
just sitting
I'll
there.
put in the box.
Yeah, we were chomping hard. Got a couple looks. It's like good.
I've been
But
with
yeah.
Ken at shows like that.
You know,
Sometimes he just
sometimes
gets
you
in
gotta-
that headspace.
yeah, I wasn't warmed up yet, exactly. But MSG, I think,
Yeah, MSG.
should be cool.
So what I forgot what I said. Yeah, no gimmicks. Hopefully they lock in. I'm expecting a good run. I'll be honest, Greg, and I know you live up there, so like I'm happy for you. I'm not super thrilled that they're doing another run this year. Honestly, I'm not seeing a lot of shows anyway because I got another kid on the way and everything. But like just for like the fandom overall in the country, I kind of wish they just spread the love a little bit. I would have loved for them to do another Deer Creek or an Alpine or
Sure. Totally.
Southeast, more Southeast. I don't know.
Gorge. I mean,
Right.
Well, okay, but what do we think this means for New Year's? Let's start some more.
I don't know.
rumors.
I do not think somebody in the chat mentioned the Sphere. I don't think Fish will ever play there because they don't have an interactive film unless they did like a live Gamehenge performance. But you do it every night then for 9.
No, they're
nights,
not gonna do it.
you
But
know?
they could do like trippy fucking shit, right?
It's too planned to have the films go with. I don't know. I feel
Just like
it-
trippy shapes and lights and things.
maybe.
I don't think they would do it because it would be hard for them to sell it out the number of times that they would need to for the ticket prices that they would need to. But no, New Year's. I want to say that they're gonna do something cool, like go somewhere else or do something else. But
Yeah.
I think they're gonna be 4 nights at MSG.
Do you think that it's going to be and they're going to acknowledge the 40th anniversary at all besides the hashtag Fish40 or whatever it was?
Oh yeah, I gotta get the gem truck back out.
Yeah, or something. Or, are they going to announce like shows around Thanksgiving and actually play on 12/3?
They
when
should.
They started?
They absolutely should. I don't think they will, but they absolutely should.
But they've never been that good. They had Holdsworth the one year, and the other year, I don't think they even did anything on the 20th or on the 10th. I don't think they did anything.
They do those videos. They edit these like montage videos
Yeah.
Right.
every
Right.
10 years.
That was the one in 13. The one in 03 was the one with Holdsworth, right?
right.
I think.
I mean, I think they're gonna do something. They're gonna do something.
They have to acknowledge it somehow.
Yeah, they're gonna do something, and we're gonna love it. I know that. it's just kind of I didn't even think about the fact that like that 2013 Gem Truck show was 10 years ago.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you think then? Let me ask you this: do you think we're going to hit a 50th?
I mean, fingers crossed. Yeah. But who knows?
I think that they're going to retire. I think that 5 years they're going to be done. The Page doesn't. I don't know personally. In my head, I see Page wanting to hang out in Vermont, and Mike loves Mike's band more than he loves playing in Fish.
Yeah, but they like, I think,
The paycheck.
the paycheck. No, but I think they do, like, they still create music, and they're still writing. I mean,
Yeah.
Trey's still getting with Tom. I think there's gonna be another album coming.
New
Paige
tunes
and
this
Trey
spring?
writing and collaborating solo is a good sign. And they're healthy and they're not on drugs anymore. Well, at least Trey's not. And you know what I mean? Like, fuck. If Phil, and I love that they are, right? But like, if Phil's still going and Bobby's still going, and how hard they rode themselves, Trey and Paige, like, these guys could go for another 15,
Right,
20
they play
years
40
easily.
shows a year.
Right. I
They
think
do
they'll go at that
much.
point, they'll go to 60, right? Like,
Right. They just
they're
give him the
drinking
torch
like
back and hang
freaking
it up.
spinach shakes and, you know, doing yoga and shit. They're super healthy.
Damn, Fish is going to outlive me.
Yeah, no shit. I mean, to be fair, you're like 120, so you've had a good run.
I had a good run. Oh man.
All right.
Man,
Very nice.
40 years. That's a long time. You know,
That's a
not
long
to keep doing this as this PR guy, but I just had this realization that next year marks 10 years of Goose, which is not, you know, it'll be a short montage video.
Right.
But I like interesting thing that this is a little bit of a segue, but it's just I thought this was a good story to tell. So they're playing SPAC this year for the first time, 7-7. So the precursor to Fish. The precursor to Goose was a band called Vasudo. You may have heard them. They recorded an album a couple years ago and put it out. But Vasudo was a bunch of like a large group of friends that myself, my co-host Bruce finds ourselves in. We used to rent a house at SPAC every 4th of July for the Fish run, you know, do a whole big shebang each year. And we rented said house in 2013. 25 people in the house. It slept like 6. We did a water wheel raffle, and the last night we had like Vasudo come up and play in the basement after the Fish show. Went till sunrise, and it was Vasudo's last show. They were breaking up, and at that point there was no Goose in the future or anything. So it was just kind of this like ending point for Trevor, for Rick, for Ben. Jeff was actually playing with them here and there too. And the date of that show was 7/7/2013. And so Goose is playing SPAC 10 years to the day of Vasudo's last show in Saratoga.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So are they playing all of SPAC, or are they only playing?
Yeah. This isn't
Pavilion?
a chrysalis situation. Yeah, this is like the real thing.
Well, I saw King Crimson once at Meriwether Post Pavilion, and they only sold pavilion seats. I went and sat on the lawn. I was the only one out there, and 3 different people came up and said, "Oh, I have a ticket for the pavilion if you need." And I'm like, "No, I have the whole lawn to myself at Meriwether."
I'm the king of the lawn.
I mean, I'm really interested to see how this SPAC show does. You know, they've done well in upstate New York, and like
What is
obviously
that? 20,000?
I mean,
big.
SPAC's like 25K because
Yeah,
that lawn is
25.
endless, right? But like,
It sucks.
I'm just yeah, exactly. Yeah, I still will not be on the lawn, but no, I
Yeah.
will. It's going to be interesting to see what it looks like and how they fill it in. These are the kind of like leaps that I'm excited about. So we'll see if it takes any time to dial the mix in, or you know, if we'll be good. Off the bat.
I hope they'd lock that in. I mean, I get it. It's hard, especially with these venues or stuff, but like it changes the dynamic so dramatically. It doesn't matter how insanely good you are, how talented you are. If your mix is off, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Definitely.
Everybody else seemed to be having a good time. Maybe it was just me.
It was you.
Oh my God. We just had a Tweezer Tonight call out. I was on that show like 5 years ago. Where the fuck that come from?
Why are they RIPing it?
I don't know. I think they're done. I haven't heard it
I
in
haven't
years.
heard an episode of that since quarantine.
Right, since I was on it like 5 years ago. All right, I think we're up against it. Greg, holy shit, it's so much fun to talk to you again.
Yeah.
This has been great. We got to make sure we do this again soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to hop on with you guys either after an MSG show or
Cool.
or
Any of the
when,
recaps, you're welcome.
or when you start thinking about Denko recaps, you
Yeah.
know, then then we can have the conversation.
Awesome.
But no, thank you guys for continuing to do this. Like I think since I kind of fell into this during the pandemic, I can't stress how good it is for community as a whole. And I love talking to you guys. So
Thanks, man.
until next time.
Like,
next time.
subscribe. If you're watching
Bye.
this afterwards, comment. Tell us what you think. We love
All
you.
right. Love you.
And
Bye.
start your own.
Sorry, Greg.